The Sinister Secrets of the Neural Implant Experiment, 17 Haunting Revelations Exposed. Jessica's heart raced as she peered through the living room window. A dark cloud settled over Edgewood, Illinois. The cheerful homes, once a comfort, now pulsed with an ominous silence. Tucked into the safety of her suburban bubble, she couldn't shake the feeling that something sinister lurked beneath the surface. Families whispered in hushed tones at the school drop-offs, eyes darting nervously. Children who once played innocently outside were now argumentative, tense shadows of themselves. And at the center of it all was the neural implant, a so-called blessing promising to enhance intelligence, a beacon of hope with a dark underbelly. Ryan, her preteen son, had found joy in the chaos of puzzles, all-nighter game marathons, and school projects that showcased his brilliance. But with the implant's arrival, everything shifted. The laughter they once shared crackled like glass breaking, every giggle replaced by an eerie silence that suffocated her. Ryan became withdrawn, navigating the complexities of his new reality with a detached brilliance. As he solved puzzles designed for adults, each victory stripped another layer from their bond. His eyes glazed with an unsettling knowledge she feared he didn't understand. The neighbors discussed the implant's perks over backyard fences, the once familiar hum of laughter being replaced by murmurs of better grades and mental advantages. A cold dread coiled around Jessica's thoughts. The latest dinner-party gossip made her skin crawl, parents exchanging anecdotes of how their children thrived yet transformed, emotions dulled like spoiled milk left to curdle. It wasn't just enhanced learning, it was something more dangerous. What were they willing to sacrifice for success? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let us continue. Late one night, Jessica jolted awake, drenched in cold sweat. Ryan was missing. Panic clawed at her throat as she tore through their home, calling out into the void. The comforting walls of their house seemed to close in, mocking her frantic search. With each moment, shadows twisted into monstrous shapes, whispering her fear back at her. She sprinted out into the night, her footsteps quickening as every corner cast long, dark shadows, illusions of her nightmares wrapping around her. The streets of Edgewood echoed with distant cries. She ran into fellow parents, wild-eyed, each revealing their own horror stories, missing kids, sudden behavioral changes, and unforeseen tragedies. They huddled together like a pack of wolves, their children devoured by the implant's grip, each revelation tightening the noose around Jessica's heart. Hope twisted into a fragile thing, teetering on the edge of despair. Then the trail led her to a local lab, hidden beneath the facade of a community center, and her gut twisted. Dr. Hemming, once a trusted friend, now loomed as the figure orchestrating this insidious symphony. Confronting him, she felt the weight of guilt and desperation crash upon her like waves, her mind racing through horrific possibilities. The implant was just altering intelligence. It was stripping their children of their very essence. In a split second, the stakes soared. Could she trust anyone? Her neighbors, the school board, the authorities? With Ryan possibly caught in the web of deception, Jessica felt the pinnacle of her nightmare drawing near, an abyss waiting for her to slip into its darkness. Would she find him before it was too late? The shadows thickened around her, the air heavy with dread. And she knew time was slipping away. Jessica's heart pounded in her chest as she stood before the lab's entrance, the oppressive darkness wrapping around her like a shroud. The once inviting community center now exuded an eerie energy, creeping and suffocating. She hesitated, the weight of dread coiling around her throat, and for a fleeting moment, doubt gnawed at her resolve. But the thought of Ryan, alone, frightened, possibly trapped inside, pushed her forward. She moved silently, her breath hitching as the fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting long shadows that twisted in every direction. Each step echoed like a funeral dirge, resonating through empty halls that felt far too close. The walls lined with faded posters of wholesome family events now felt sinister, mocking her with reminders of the community she thought she knew. As she crept deeper into the building, a soft humming noise grew louder, mechanical and steady, like heartbeats gone awry. Jessica pressed her back against the cool metal of a service door, her fingers trembling at her sides. The chill of the corridor seeped into her bones, whispering fears she struggled to push away. Suddenly, a door banged open several steps away. A group of adults emerged, gray in demeanor, their expressions vacant and hollow. They shuffled past her like marionettes without strings, eyes glazed over, seemingly oblivious to the world around them. Anxiety clawed at Jessica's gut. Were these the parents who had embraced the implants, sacrificed so much for the sake of brilliance? What horrors lay ahead? Pushing her way further, she approached an observation window, peering through the grimy glass. Inside, she gasped. Rows of children sat with vacant stares, prosthetic devices protruding from their heads. They focused on screens that blinked and flashed, their fingers moving almost mechanically across keyboards. And there, in the middle, was Ryan, his brow furrowed, working furiously as if possessed by an unseen force. A jolt of despair hit Jessica, and she slammed her palm against the glass, but no sound escaped her lips. Ryan seemed so distant, consumed by a world where thoughts weren't his own. Panic surged. She couldn't just watch her son fade away. Determination overpowered her fear. She had to get him out. Jessica turned to find another entrance somewhere, anywhere. In her rush, she nearly tripped over a loose cable spilling from an open hatch. It led down into darkness, but she grasped what remained of her courage and climbed down, the descent whispering promises of uncertainty and dread. The air thickened around her as she reached the bottom. No longer guided by the sterile hum of lights, chaos enveloped her senses. Heavy breathing, muffled cries, and harsh mechanical hisses filled the air. She fumbled in the dark, her hands against cold, rough concrete until she felt the warmth of flesh against her arm. "Hello?" a child's voice whispered, fragile and tremulous. "Who are you?" "It's okay, I'm looking for my son. I'm Jessica," she replied, barely suppressing her fear. "Have you seen Ryan?" The voice hesitated, then whispered back urgently. "They're taking us one by one. They want our minds, our hearts, everything." Jessica's heart sank. Who's doing this?" Before the child could respond, a loud crash echoed around them, sending them both into stunned silence. The shadows shifted, growing more sinister. The air thickened with the smell of fear. She felt the ground tremble beneath her feet, a promise of danger. Without warning, a figure loomed in the doorway, and Jessica froze, her blood running cold. It was Dr. Hemming, eyes glimmering eerily in the dim light. "Ah, a mother looking for her child. How tragic, you might just be too late." The darkness pressed in, and she realized an escape might not be what she thought. The true horror of the experiment was here, closing in on her. Could she save Ryan, or was she walking blindly into the very maw of evil threatening to consume them all? As the figure advanced, Jessica knew she had mere seconds to act. Jessica's instincts kicked in, she had to think fast. The shadows around her stirred as Dr. Hemming took a deliberate step forward, a predator circling its prey. Panic surged through her veins. She turned on her heel, grabbing the child's hand without thinking. "This way," she hissed, pulling the trembling form toward a narrow corridor, the dim light flickering ominously above them. Behind her, she could hear Dr. Hemming's voice cutting through the chaos like a knife. "You can't run from the inevitable, Jessica. Join us, or let your son drown in a sea of ignorance." Each word oozed with a sickly sweet tone, as if he relished the terror seeping into her. She didn't stop to respond, she couldn't afford to hesitate. They had to find a way out before he seized them both. As they sprinted down the hall, Jessica could feel the weight of eyes pricking at her back, a sense of being pursued, hunted. The child stumbled beside her. I can't keep up." The sound of breathing echoed back at them, heavy, labored, and unnatural. A shudder rippled through Jessica. She couldn't let the darkness consume them. "Just a little longer," she urged, pushing past a door that led to an abandoned classroom. Old desks were piled high, barricading their entry point. She quickly stationed the child behind the desk. "Stay here. Don't make a sound." Jessica pressed her back against the wall, listening. The distant sound of footsteps approached, heavy and relentless. Her heart raced. She peered through the small window in the door, her breathing shallow. Dr. Hemming appeared at the far end of the hall, communicating with the adults who had passed her earlier, hands gesturing in eerie synchrony. There connected the realization struck her. They had become like puppets, no longer in control of their own minds. And that could easily be Ryan's fate. The urgency tainted her panic with fresh motivation. "What are we going to do?" the child quavered from behind the desk. "He'll find us." Jessica turned, taking in the child's wide, terror-stricken eyes. "Listen to me. If we don't get out of here now, we'll end up like them. We can't let that happen." The child nodded, determination flashing within the fear. Jessica realized they had to break through the barricade. It was their only hope. Together, they moved the desks, adrenaline fueling their desperation. Every sound felt amplified, the creaking of the wood and the shriek of metal sending tendrils of fear up her spine. As they finally cleared enough space to slip through, Jessica wasted no time, an all-consuming need to find Ryan pushing her onward. They stepped into the dimly lit corridor again, and the soft mechanical humming wrapped around them like a fog. She pulled the child close, scanning for any sign of danger. But the corridor was empty, an ominous stillness hung in the air. "Where do we go?" the child asked, anxiety creeping back into his voice. "Towards the observation room," Jessica decided. "That window, we may be able to reach it if we move quickly." But as they approached the glass-paneled wall, a loud, electric crackle echoed, freezing Jessica in place. The lights flickered again, illuminating a grotesque scene unfolding in the room. The children were no longer at their machines. They sat motionless, their heads angled in unnatural positions, eyes vacant. Ryan's face was twisted in fear, a scream trapped behind his lips. "Ryan!" Jessica screamed, but the sound was swallowed by the darkness. Dr. Hemming's laughter echoed down the hall, an inescapable reminder of the doom looming overhead. "You'll have to make a choice, save yourself, or save him." The choice hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Jessica's hands balled into fists. They had to move. But before she could turn, something shifted in the shadows, a presence, chilling and palpable, sliding ever closer. As the figure stepped into the light, the edges blurred and warped, revealing an array of horrible faces, too many to count. Would Jessica be able to face the horrifying truth of the implants, and save Ryan before it consumed them all? The answers lay in the nightmare that was just beginning to unfold. The faces twisted and writhed in a grotesque dance of suffering. Jessica's heart thudded in her chest, the pounding echoing in her ears. She felt sick, her stomach roiling at the sight before her. Each face was a reflection of lost innocence, eyes hollowed out as if the very essence of those children had been siphoned away. "Move!" She yanked at the child's hand, urgency igniting her limbs. They had to get further down the corridor, had to escape this nightmare. Just as they turned to flee, a loud crash reverberated through the hall. Dr. Hemming's voice slithered after them, taunting and confident. "You underestimate their power, Jessica. You cannot save them all." With every step they took, the malevolence of that voice chased them deeper. Jessica dared not look back, focusing solely on the dim light ahead, hoping it wasn't the light of an oncoming train. "Where's Ryan? We have to help him," the child begged, breaths coming quicker, desperation creeping up like a cold finger against her spine. I know," Jessica whispered, trying to steady her own terror. They darted into another room, a dilapidated storage area filled with broken equipment and abandoned toys. Hope flickered like a dying bulb. "We'll find him. Just hold on." The door slammed behind them, jolting Jessica into action. "We have to barricade it." Scrambling, they piled old chairs and crates against the door, panic giving strength to her weak arms. The echo of Dr. Hemming's laughter dripped into the room from the cracks. She shivered, feeling the walls pulse as if they were alive, choking with despair. Look! The child pointed at a window in the far corner, adorned with a thin, almost invisible layer of dust. Jessica moved to it, squinting through. Outside lay a forgotten world, the sky bruised with gray clouds. It looked like the end of days, a swirling fog strangling the sun. But there, in the distance across a field of weeds, she made out the silhouette of a playground. Maybe we can run to there, she said, heart-lurching. If we get outside, we can find a way that's where he told us to go. The child interrupted, trembling now. Dr. Hemming said no one leaves, no one ever comes back. The words sank in like lead. Cold fear ignited in Jessica. She shook her head. We can't trust him. We have to try. Then a sound. Footsteps. Heavy, deliberate, coming closer. The thrill of dread prickled her skin. Jessica exchanged a glance with the child. There was no time. Quiet! She hissed, and they both pressed against the wall, breath held tight as the shadows crept under the door. A creaking, growing louder, filled the silence. Someone was on the other side, fingers tapping with a rhythm too precise to be human. Jessica's stomach dropped at the precision, the methodical insistence of it. Jessica, the child's small voice shook. What if he doesn't want us to leave? Then we'll make him, she vowed, adrenaline pumping through her. The door shook. They could hear the pressure building, the sound of a body against it, ready to burst through. On 3, Jessica counted under her breath, adrenaline rising. 1, 2, but just as she opened her mouth to say 3, the door flung wide. In the blinding light stood Dr. Hemming, a sinister smile stretched across his face. I told you, Jessica, he drawled, stepping closer. You will join us, it's time to embrace the truth. His eyes flickered, and for a moment she swore they glowed like embers in the night. It wasn't just him anymore. Behind him, the shadows surged forward, laughter echoing in an unnatural harmony that chilled her bones. What are you waiting for? He urged, hands outstretched, as if he was inviting them to a closer look at the abyss. Jessica felt the weight of her choice pressing down. But every instinct screamed to run. She couldn't let him win. We'd rather die fighting, she shouted, pushing the child back, preparing to make a desperate lunge for the window when suddenly, a cascade of memories flooded her mind. The way Ryan had looked playing in that playground, how they had promised to always keep each other safe in that single instant. The shadows seemed to lean in closer, hungry to devour her hope. The terrifying realization gripped her heart. What if that playground is a trap? As the shadows surged forward, Jessica and the child had only one chance left to get away. They had to face Dr. Hemming and the truth behind the horrors unfolding in this nightmare. What would happen next? Would they plunge into the darkness, or could they truly escape the clutches of the man who wanted to control them? Jessica didn't hesitate. She ripped the child's hand from the wall, the echo of Dr. Hemming's laughter still ringing in her ears like a death knell. Run! She shouted, propelling them both forward. The room behind them groaned under the weight of their urgency, shadows clawing at their heels. They stumbled through the door and into the corridor, the flickering fluorescent lights above casting long, erratic shadows that twisted against the peeling walls. Jessica could feel the panic bubbling to the surface, her breath quickening as she scanned for an escape. But every step felt like sinking deeper into quicksand. Dr. Hemming was behind them, his voice oozing confidence. You're only postponing the inevitable, he called out, each word echoing like a mocking chorus. You can't escape what's already inside you. Jessica's heart raced. What had he done? She could already feel fear twisting in her gut, cold and slimy. She had to focus. They ducked into another room, a darkened lab filled with rusty equipment, and outdated monitors blinking uncertainly like dying fireflies. She pressed the child against the wall, pushing herself in front to act as a shield. Hide! She whispered urgently, as she found a heavy metal table to use as a barricade. The child did as told, scrambling under the table with wide, terrified eyes shimmering like stars in the dark. Jessica could hear her own heartbeat thundering in her ears, drowning out the world. She strained to listen, to catch any hint of Dr. Hemming's approach, Silence filled the air, thick and suffocating. Then came the unmistakable sound of footsteps, slow, deliberate, as if he were savoring their dread. Each footfall felt like a countdown to disaster. Would he come in? Would he find them? Suddenly, a low voice broke through the quiet. "Jessica, darling, you're making this so difficult." Her blood ran cold. "Be calm. It will all be over soon. You can join the others," he continued, his words syrupy sweet yet laced with malice. "The playground waits for you." Jessica squeezed her eyes shut. No! She wasn't ready to succumb to his games. She remembered Ryan, his laugh, his small frame running across the grass, carefree amidst a world that seemed so pure. He was out there somewhere, and she couldn't let Hemming take that from her. From them. A loud crash reverberated as Dr. Hemming slammed his hand against the wall outside the lab. "Jessica! I can show you what they've seen. You'll understand. You have to trust me." "Trust you?" She nearly spat, her hands trembling as they curled into fists. "You're a monster!" His laughter echoed, chilling her bones. "Am I? Or am I merely a guide to the truth?" Feel the warmth of their joy. Embrace what they have found in that moment. Uncertainty gnawed at her. She gritted her teeth, trying to shake off the sudden doubt creeping in. The child beneath the table looked up at her, scared and uncertain. What if he's right? What if Ryan's? "Don't say it," Jessica hissed, filled with a sudden surge of protectiveness. "We're going to find him. We're going to escape." Then she caught a glimpse of movement outside the dusty window in the far corner of the room. A figure, almost familiar, stood still amidst the weeds. It was too dark, too blurry to be sure, but it sent a jolt through her. "Ryan. Keep your eyes on me," Jessica whispered to the child. "We're going to run. Follow my lead." Dr. Hemming's voice grew louder, spinning webs of doubt and longing. "You can have him back, Jessica. All of him. But you must join us first." With a sudden burst of determination, Jessica pushed the table aside and dashed for the window. The child scrambled after her, feet pounding against the cold floor. She slung the window open, ready to jump, when an icy hand shot out and grabbed her wrist. "Don't leave!" the child screamed, eyes wide with terror. The darkness outside loomed thick, but from the dizzying whirl of confusion, one thought broke through: they had to face whatever was out there. They had no choice. What awaited them in the shadows? What hidden truths lay just beyond that window? "Why are you fighting this?" Dr. Hemming's voice now dripped with desperation. "You'll never find solace if you keep running." Jessica locked eyes with the child, determination hardening in her chest. "Trust me, we will." And with that, they leapt into the unknown, not knowing if their next step led to freedom or to the depths of the manufactured horror Dr. Hemming had orchestrated. But as they fell into darkness, one question remained nagging in the back of Jessica's mind: was the truth worth the price they would have to pay? The moment they landed, Jessica's breath was knocked from her lungs. The ground was soft, a gnarled mess of weeds and decay. She scrambled to her feet, adrenaline pouring into her system like fire. But where was the child? Panic surged as she spun around, spotting a small figure rising from the shadow of the window. "Are you okay?" Jessica gasped, her heart pounding beneath her ribcage. The child nodded, though fear still danced in her wide eyes. "What was that?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Before Jessica could answer, the air around them thickened, charged with an unseen pressure. A low hum reverberated through the ground, a dark heartbeat echoing through the earth. It felt alive, as if the very soil was aware of their presence. "Run!" Jessica urged, grabbing the girl's hand. They dashed forward, the overgrown foliage clawing at their arms as they tore through the night. But the garden, if that's what this forsaken place could be called, was a labyrinth. The trees twisted like grotesque sculptures, roots snaked out like fingers reaching for her ankles. Shadows shifted, playing tricks on her mind. Every turn took them deeper into the murk, and each heartbeat echoed louder with dread. "Jessica!" the child shouted, clutching her hand tighter. "What if we can't find Ryan?" Jessica's horror lurched anew. "We will," she insisted, though the weight of uncertainty pressed heavily on her. They had leapt into the unknown, and now the unknown clawed back. Suddenly, a piercing cry shattered the stillness. It came from deeper within the shadows, a wail that sent chills racing down her spine. "Stay close," she warned, and with every step, the ground grew colder, like stepping into a grave. Then, something slithered across her vision, a flicker, a face almost hidden by the twisted branches. Jessica froze. It looked like Ryan, but there was something wrong. His eyes glinted like polished stones, devoid of warmth, of the laughter she cherished. Fear gripped her heart. "Ryan?" she called, voice cracking. A chuckle filled the air, echoing from every direction, agonizingly familiar. "Mommy, come play," the voice teased, then twisted into mocking laughter that sank deep into her. "No!" she shouted, shoving the child behind her protectively. "You're not him." "Are you so sure?" The chilling timbre sounded like Dr. Hemming, yet came from the child's lips, mingling innocence with malice. "Maybe I can show you the truth in a heartbeat." The image of Ryan flickered again, and before she could think, he dashed through the thicket, beckoning her with an outstretched hand. "Mom, come play." A cold sweat broke out on Jessica's brow. This wasn't her Ryan. This was Hemming's work, slippery and beguiling. But her heart ached for a return to that laughter, that joy lost to darkness. "Pull it together," she whispered to herself. "We need to keep moving." She turned sharply, gripping the child's hand, and retraced their path, desperate to escape the grip of the shadows. But the laughter intensified, surrounding them like a suffocating fog. As they broke through a thicket, they stumbled into a clearing bathed in an eerie glow, illuminated by a crescent moon. In the center stood an old playground, rusty swings creaking in the night breeze. Figures danced on the periphery, vague and shrouded in shadow. "No!" she gasped, realization dawning. "Not here," Jessica whispered the child. "Maybe we're supposed to join them." The merry-go-round spun slowly, and as Jessica backed away, the laughter surged anew. She felt an icy grip around her heart, a weight of despair and lost promises. "Join what?" she demanded, pulse racing as the figures began to step closer, their forms twisting and blurring in the moonlight. As the child shrank behind her, Jessica felt the corners of her sanity fraying. The figures wore familiar faces, friends, neighbors, people she had known. They reached out, eyes hollow, expressions twisted with a manic joy. "Embrace the truth," they chanted, their voices weaving together, creating a maddening symphony. Heart pounding, Jessica took a step back, glancing at the child hiding behind her. "We have to go now." But before she could turn, a hand shot out from the shadows, grabbing her shoulder with a grip that felt both cold and familiar. "Don't leave!" Hemming's voice echoed, resonating in the hollow air. "Stay and play with us." With a surge of terror coursing through her veins, Jessica tore herself free, pulling the child with her. They turned to flee, but a chilling realization struck her. This was no ordinary escape. Did she dare confront the horrors creeping into her mind, take the risk to save not just Ryan but also themselves? They raced into the encroaching shadows, pursued by echoes of laughter that promised a descent into madness. But what awaited them on the flip side of that laughter? Jessica's heart ached with dread as they plunged further into the darkness. What hidden truths would they uncover, and would they be strong enough to face them? The shadows folded in around them, pulsating with a life of their own, each flicker of movement heightening Jessica's fear. The laughter was everywhere and nowhere, a relentless echo that seemed to burrow into her mind, rooting doubt deep within her chest. "Keep moving," she urged, her voice barely above a whisper. Each hurried step took her deeper into an unending night, the playground retreating into the darkness behind them. The child's small hand was a tether to reality, a fragile connection that felt waning. They skidded around another twisted tree, their breath heavy and ragged. But behind them, the laughter morphed into something more sinister, a collection of voices now, ghostly whispers snaking through the night air like smoke. The figures from the playground were merging with the shadows, chasing them, their faces flickering out of the darkness and back, taunting them. "Why are they laughing?" the child asked, her voice quivering. "They're not laughing," Jessica shot back. "They're mocking us." Ahead, the trees parted, and they stumbled into a valley, the ground sinking beneath the weight of their panic. A glimmer caught Jessica's eye, pulling her attention to the ground, a puddle reflecting the pale moonlight. She leaned in closer, and her heart plummeted. The puddle wasn't water. It was a dark liquid that moved like oil, swirling, shifting. Images swam within it, parents looking for missing children, countless faces filled with anguish. And then, unmistakably, Ryan's face emerged, mouthing silent words as terror played on his features. Despair twisted within Jessica. "Help me, Mommy!" His voice echoed from the puddle, layered with cries of anguish, and for a moment she felt herself falter. "Look away!" Jessica shouted, grabbing the child and yanking her back. But as she turned away, the laughter deepened, punctuated by the jarring sound of rusted metal scraping against crumbling earth. The merry-go-round from the playground had materialized behind them, spinning erratically, gleaming through the dark like an omen. "Don't go near it," she warned, heart hammering in her chest. It felt like a magnet, pulling them closer, drawing out the most vulnerable parts of her mind. "Jessica, I want to play," the girl lisped, eyes wide and entranced. "No!" Jessica's voice tore through the air with fierce urgency. "You're not yourself. Fight it!" As they turned to flee, the ground vibrated underfoot, thrumming with the wicked laughter of the shadows closing in. They dashed away, but the underbrush seemed to grasp at them, roots stretching, desperate fingers attempting to drag them down into the abyss. Suddenly, a thick fog began to roll in, heavy and suffocating. There was no more laughter. Just silence. Jessica could feel the child's breath quicken against her arm. Every instinct screamed at her to run faster as gnarled forms began to break through the fog like nightmares made flesh. "Look out!" she shouted, yanking the girl to the side as a dark figure lunged, its arms outstretched. It was not just the laughter that haunted them. It was the remnants of the past, twisted into something grotesque. "Join us!" a chorus of whispers beckoned, pulling at her senses like vines constricting tighter. No, she thought. This wasn't happening. She fought against the rising fear clawing at her throat, willing herself to find clarity. Ryan was out there. She had to save him. Panic pressed against her chest as they burst into a small clearing, the trees uprooted in a circle like watchful sentinels. In the center stood a mirrored structure, reflecting the scene around them in a warped, distorted fashion. Jessica's breath quickened as she peered closer. Each reflection showed a new version of her, one filled with sorrow, one with anger, and one with emptiness. "Jessica," the child whispered, pulling her back. "What are they?" And then the laughter returned, wrong and loud, echoing off the broken trees and stealing away her last shred of sanity. "Don't listen!" she yelled, frantically dragging the girl back toward the path they came from. But the shadows twisted around, forming walls that closed in, suffocating their escape. What would happen if they got trapped here, lost to the laughter forever? Jessica could already feel the cold breath of something lurking behind them, just out of reach, waiting for the moment when hope faded completely. "Mommy," a broken voice called out once again, drifting through the air like smoke. Her heart stopped. Which voice? When would it end? As the fog thickened, Jessica braced herself, knowing full well that the clock was ticking. If they didn't find a way soon, the darkness would claim them, and the truth of this cursed place would be lost forever. In that moment, Jessica faced the realization. The only way forward might very well mean embracing the unknown herself. What was the truth hidden within the darkness? Jessica squeezed the girl's hand tighter. They had to keep moving, but her legs felt leaden, weighed down by the dread encroaching from all sides. The shadows closed in, watching, waiting. The laughter morphed then, becoming a cacophony of cruel mirth, erupting into painful shrieks that clawed at her ears. It felt so intimate, so personal. Each note of despair lingered in the air around them, apologizing for the haunting memories. "Mommy, I can see them," the girl said, her face turning pale, entranced by something in the fog. Jessica spun around, panic surging through her. "Don't look!" she shouted, even as her eyes betrayed her, glancing toward the swirling mist. There were shapes moving there, silhouettes with elongated limbs and emaciated faces, their mouths stretched into grins that chilled the deepest part of her heart. "Let me show you!" one of the figures hissed, stepping forward, disembodied arms beckoning them with serpentine grace. "Run!" Jessica pulled the child back, but the girl faltered, staring wide-eyed as if enthralled. "They're lost, like us," the girl murmured, her gaze caught by the irrevocable draw of the shadow world. For the first time, Jessica saw the glimmer of fear falter in her child's eyes. Desperation burned in Jessica's throat. "No, they want to take you. Trust me." She turned, pulling the girl harder this time as they raced toward the obscured edges of the clearing. Each frantic step felt like a betrayal of her own fears, with the laughter chasing them, becoming a living entity, merging with the fog that thickened further. Each breath tasted metallic and overwhelming with anguish. Suddenly, the shadows flickered erratically, then surged forward as a tidal wave of darkness. Jessica stumbled, pulling the girl with her as they fell into a low, dilapidated structure emerging from the fog's shack, barely standing as though it too was tired of this cursed night. "What are we doing?" the girl whimpered, pulling back against the doorframe. "Trust me," Jessica pleaded, forcing herself into the darkness of the shack, dragging the girl inside. They burst through the door, slamming it shut against the chaos outside. The shack was a void, pitch black and suffocating, invading her senses and wrapping around her like a shroud. "What if they find us?" the girl whispered, trembling beside her. Jessica could only shake her head, face taut with fear. There were no reassuring answers. In this silence, every little sound was magnified, the creaking wood, their heavy breaths, and somewhere in the distance the laughter resumed, melded with quiet cries for help. "What do they want?" the child asked, and Jessica felt the weight of that question slither through her. They were right, she didn't know. "They want," Jessica hesitated. "To play?" The words slipped out unsure, tinged with irony and despair. The laughter morphed again, maddeningly alive, a sinister symphony of precious memories twisted into grotesque mockery. It felt as if the darkness itself listened, waiting for them to break. "I want to go home," the girl whimpered, eyes slowly brimming with tears. "Me too." Jessica's breath caught as she bit her lip, forcing herself to focus before she cracked. "But we have to be strong. We can't let them win." Just as she steadied her resolve, a loud crash erupted outside, shaking the walls of the shack. Heavy thudding footsteps approached, deliberate and slow. The darkness felt very alive now, pulsating against the wooden beams. "Join us," the whispers came again, layered with empathy that unsettled her core. "We have what you seek." What did they know? Jessica's heart drummed a frantic beat in her ears as she pressed her back against the wall, pulling her child in closer. She would not let them take her. Not now, not ever. "Stay quiet," she whispered hoarsely, every instinct telling her that whatever was outside was not just trying to scare them. It was brewing something far worse, an invocation of their deepest fears, dreams twisted into despair. As she stared into the crushing blackness that enveloped them, faint shapes snaked along the edges, crawling closer. Fear lanced through her, making it hard to breathe, as she caught glimpses of faces behind the shadows, people she once knew, lost and pleading. They were here because she had summoned them? But no, she had come to save Ryan. What was the price? The laughter intensified, morphing into howls that clawed against her sanity. With each clever turn of sound, Jessica could feel the shack vibrating, and a chill crept down her spine. "Are you ready to play?" With a battle cry rising in her throat, Jessica braced herself against the splintered wall. The voices continued to chant, weaving their malevolent spell around the shack. Shadows pulled at her feet, writhing like snakes. The air felt charged with an impending storm of darkness. What awaited her beyond the walls of this shack? How could she break the snares of despair before the darkness consumed them both? As the whispers pressed in around them, demanding an answer, Jessica's resolve hardened. She would fight, or she would fall, but she would not surrender. And then came the moment of truth, and unsettling clarity washed over her. In this dance of terror, what if it wasn't enough to flee? What if she had to face the very shadows she feared? The darkness shifted, the walls of the shack pulsating as if breathing, and Jessica realized there may be no way out, only through. Would she dare to confront the sickening depths of her own heart? In the suffocating silence of the shack, the darkness pressed against Jessica and her daughter like an unseen predator. The air felt thick, charged with something more than fear. It was a tangible presence, pressing in, whispering sweet promises and bitter betrayals. Jessica's heart raced, the pounding echoing in her ears as if the very structure of the shack could listen to her terror. "Mommy, I don't like it here," the girl whimpered, her voice small and fragile. Jessica turned to her, forcing a brave smile she didn't feel. "We'll be okay. Just hold tight to me," she whispered, though doubt gnawed at her insides. Suddenly, a soft scratching sound broke the stillness, like fingernails on wood. Jessica froze, eyes wide. The noise was followed by a low, guttural growl, slithering through the shadows. It seemed to weave in and out of the very fabric of the shack an invitation, a taunt, a promise of whatever twisted reality waited beyond. "Are you ready to play?" The voice was deeper now, resonating through the walls, vibrating in her bones. It flickered with that awful laughter, mocking Jessica's desperate determination. She urged her daughter, pressing a finger to her lips. But inside, her own fear clawed at her, biting at her resolve like desperate teeth. She had to push through this, she had to fight. But how? The shack creaked ominously. One of the beams groaned, shifting under the pressure of unseen weight. A wall began to slide, revealing an opening cloaked in shadow. Jessica's breath caught as a cold breeze swept through, chilling them both. "Mommy, what is happening?" Jessica took a deep breath, scanning the newly revealed space. It was darker than night, wrapping around them like an embrace. This wasn't just a way out, it felt like a trap, a seductive lure into a bottomless abyss. But somewhere in that darkness, could there be a way to find Ryan? "Stay close," she instructed, thumbing the girl's wrist to ground herself. Jessica inched toward the opening, the air becoming almost viscous. It thickened with despair, whispering their fears to each other, swirling around them like a sinister dance. As they stepped into the dark, the air grew colder. Shapes moved in the corner of her vision, figures twisted from nightmares, eyes wide and begging. Their faces morphed in the dim light, twisting into familiar features, friends, loved ones she thought lost, ghosts of remorse clawing for release. "No! Get away!" Jessica stomped her foot, suppressing the swell of fear that threatened to break free. She shook her head wildly, determination flaring like a match in the dark. She had to control this madness, to deny the shadows their power. But the mocking laughter erupted again, louder now, weaving its way through the very fabric of her memories. "Join us, learn the truth." Jessica's heart raced. Truth? What truth? The word felt like a razor against her thoughts, slicing through the fog of her memory. She yearned for clarity, yet it fled like smoke through her fingers. "Mommy!" The girl's cry pulled her back to the moment, back to the dread pressing in. "Listen to me." Jessica squeezed her daughter's hand, her voice urgent. "We need to keep moving. We can't stop." They stepped deeper into the void, the ground uneven beneath their feet. Every whispered promise, every feigned hope shifted, clawing at them, trying to turn them back. But as they ventured further, something changed. The laughter turned into something more sinister, more urgent, a chant, a rhythm that slipped into the cracks of her mind. The girl tugged on her mother's sleeve, terror etched in her face. "They're coming!" Something shifted in the shadows, a mass of darkness expanding, writhing, twisting. Jessica felt it, an urge to succumb, to give in to the chilling pull. "No! You will not take her!" Jessica screamed, defiance rising within her, fueled by rage and love. Yet, as the shadows surged forward, engulfing the room with their penetrable blackness, a figure broke through, pressing against the edges of terror, beckoning with an outstretched hand. "Let me show you the next level of this game." Jessica's breath hitched. She had only anticipated shadows, madness, lost souls. But this? This was an invitation to understand the deepest horrors, the cost of survival. As she stood at the precipice, a choice loomed large in her heart. Would she dare to take that hand, to embrace the very thing she feared, in order to find the strength to save Ryan? The swirling darkness closed in, and it felt as if it was her heartbeat in the chant, keeping time with the rising dread. What would happen if she stepped closer? Would the truth emerge to guide her through the chaos? The shadows beckoned her name. Jessica stood frozen at the threshold, the figure in the shadows waiting for her decision. Her heart thudded painfully in her chest, a relentless reminder of every moment that led her here. "I'm not afraid of you," she said, lifting her chin. "Not yet. But you will be," the figure replied, voice smooth yet cold, a sick mockery of comfort. Beneath the surface of her determination, fear pulsed like a living thing, threatening to consume her if she allowed it. The past clawed at her, memories of laughter with Ryan in the park, untainted by the darkness that had overtaken their world. "I won't lose him," she whispered fiercely, stepping forward. The shadows stirred around her, swirling and writhing as if in response to her defiance. A tug of war ensued between the pull of darkness and the power of her love. "I will fight for him." The revelation struck her like a bolt of lightning. The truth was not hidden within the shadows. It was her love for Ryan that would guide her. That love was a weapon she could wield against this darkness. With a fierce cry, she reached for the outstretched hand, embracing the challenge of facing her own fears head-on. Instantly, the walls of the shack trembled as if the very structure resented her defiance. The figure stepped forward into the light, revealing a face a mirrored version of Jessica, flawed and tortured. "Join us, Jessica. Don't you want to know what it feels like?" "No!" she shouted, her voice echoing against the walls. "I want to save my son." In that moment, a radiant warmth erupted from her core, spreading outward. Light burst forth, pushing back the shadows, scattering the laughter like grains of sand in a storm. Jessica felt her resolve solidifying, transforming the fear into an undeniable force. "This is not who we are," she declared, and with one mighty push, she lunged at the figure. As she collided with the dark entity, memories flooded her mind, happy moments with Ryan, their shared laughter, and the unbreakable bond of mother and son. Each memory acted as a shield, absorbing the horror that surrounded her. "We are more than this!" she screamed, forcing her way deeper into the heart of darkness. The shadows shrieked, contorted, and twisted as the brightness of her love broke through the cloying fog. Gradually, other figures emerged from the gloom, faces of lost children and familiar friends, eyes wide with hope as they turned towards her light. Their hollow expressions began to shift, softening as they recognized the warmth spreading through the darkness. "Help us," one child whispered, reaching out. Jessica steeled herself. "We will get out. Together," she cried, extending her hands to the fearful souls, determination coursing through her. She felt the connection, the strength surging as they joined with her, a circle of collective hope breaking through despair. With one final, synchronized effort, they surged together as one, a united force of light against the consuming darkness. The shadows recoiled, shrieking as they were pushed back, unraveling like dark threads of a tapestry torn at the seams. Every ounce of fear and pain lifted from her soul, scattering into the void, replaced by warmth and light. Then, she felt a gentle tug at her sleeve. She turned and there was Ryan, alive and radiant, with that joyful sparkle in his eyes she had feared lost. "Mom!" he exclaimed, breaking into a beaming smile. "You found me!" "I'll always find you, Ryan," she choked out, and enveloped him in her arms, tears streaming down her face. The space around them transformed. The shack melted away, shadows retreating like a fading nightmare. The playground loomed before them, illuminated by the brightness of their joy. "What now?" the child beside her asked, glancing around wide-eyed. With Ryan safely in her embrace, Jessica drew a deep breath. "Now we reclaim our future. We start fresh," she declared, strength radiating from her. Together, they stepped forward through the remnants of the shadows, leaving the darkness behind as vibrant sunlight poured over them. A new dawn revealing endless possibilities. As they stood together in the newfound light, a promise hung in the air, a promise that love would always conquer fear, and together they would face whatever challenges lay ahead. "Let us go home," she whispered, hand tightly clasped in Ryan's. The laughter once filled with malice now transformed into the joyous sounds of children at play, echoing forever. In that moment, they had forged a bond unbreakable and a future shimmering with hope. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this breathtaking conclusion. Instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this electrifying ending. You need to support the channel, and this is the moment to do it. Don't wait even one more second.